Welcome to ISRA League's Grand Touring Championship, brought to you by Z1 SimWheel and the Z1 SimWheel LCD display. You can see here the LCD display features the dashboards of all of the cars in iRacing and makes an excellent addition to any sim rig. Find out more at z1simwheel.com. Well, this is Race 7, 2 hours in the Dell, and my name is Daniel Quaroni. I'm here with Brian Carey.
Great to be here, Dan.
And Anthony Muniz.
Hey, great to be back for another race.
Yes, so we have 2 hours here at Road America, the second Enduro of Season 7 here. And in just a moment, we will check out the point standings as we walk into this race. Here we go. Colin McLean leading the Daytona Prototypes with 110 points. Brian Carey and Chuck Chambliss in a heated battle for a second. And it looks like John Kuzland could be vying for the third spot there. But then Daniel Gralti pretty solidly at the moment in fifth, although he could probably turn that into fourth if things go his way. In Ford GT, Chris Damron Jr. still dominating, 124 points there. That's nearly perfect. Marty Jeffries, 38 points down, so I think there's no chance there. But Kenny Coughlin only 2 points down for Marty, so Mike Kelly again not racing GT, so we have to look to Matthew Voigt. And then in Cadillac, we have James Cullen with 110 points. Ricardo Machuca, 10 points down. Then a battle for third there between Mark Payne and Warren Bateman. And Julio is pretty solidly there in fifth, although Don Hunter could be giving him a fight. Mark Payne missing a couple races, I think, is why he's that low. Brian, let's hear the track.
All right, this is a Road America, 4 mile exactly, 6.4 kilometer road course, commissioned in 1955. And an interesting fact about the course, it's one of the very few courses in the world that's retained its original configuration. So the same track that they raced in 55 is what we see now. As you can see, a lot of long straightaways, a lot of fast corners. The carousel turns 9 and 10 there at the back of the course, very difficult. Corner, turn 11, the kink. So Canada corner, turn 12, turn 1, and turn 5 are going to be your main passing areas here. But a very, very exciting track, and we expect to see a lot of action over these 2 hours.
All right, we'll go to qualifying. Colin McLean starting on pole for the Daytona Prototypes with a 1 minute 57.421, but Russell Cow 1/1000th of a second behind him in second. Man, that was a close and exciting qualifying session. Then we have John Kuzlin, Dana Gralti, Timothy Stoll, Kevin Savoy, Carlos Passos, Mike Kelly, and Anthony Muniz.
And only 9-car Ford GT field here, led away by Chris Damron Jr. with a 2:04.8. Daniel Verness on the outside of row 1, then Kenny Coughlin and Patrick Spence, row 2. Marty Jeffries, Lance Snyder, row 3. Daniel Coroni and Tim McLeish, row 4. And Clark Reed alone on row 5.
All right, then for the Cadillacs, James Cullen took the pole with a 2 minute 6.9. Mark Payne was close to a second behind. They will be starting on the first row. Todd Carver and Ricardo Machuca will be row 2. Lauren Bateman and Gilles Moret will be row 3. Jeremy Burris and Sean Cuthbertson, row 4. And then Ryan Huff and Jerry Morsdorf will be rounding out the 5th row.
Now we saw John Kelly off the track, and if you look in the background there, he is moving, making his way through the traffic. What's happened there is he had a temporary wheel malfunction, so he pulled it off track so he can get by safely, and now he is trying to reclaim his spot in line. There he is again. So almost a complete disaster for John Kelly, but fortunately he will be able to race.
That was one of the longer pace laps in the series, as when the other long track that's above 4 miles is a Spa-Francorchamps, which is in fact our other 2-hour enduro. They start the cars off partway around the lap, so we don't have to wait as long for this start, but we get a good chance to take a view of the track as the pace cars entering the carousel right now. See Chris Dameron Jr. and Daniel Verness leading away the 4 GTs. And as we don't grid by class, as you can see, there's James Cullen there in the green and accented Cadillac, mixed in with some of these 4 GTs too. So the start will be a little interesting, as you can see John Kelly there doing his best to try to make it through. Road America is not a very wide track, so John's having a little bit of difficulty regaining his proper position there at the start.
And we just saw them going through the kink, as Brian mentioned, a very challenging turn. Is it flat out in the Daytona Prototype?
I honestly don't remember. I think it is, maybe. A little feather, perhaps.
There's no braking needed, but you do have to feather the throttle, give a little lift just to kind of settle the car into the corner, and then you can power out. But it's not flat like the LMP was last year.
Okay, yeah, in the 4GT you definitely have to apply some brakes on entry.
And I believe it was, I can't remember if it was 2005 or 2006, but it was a scene of Catherine Legg's somewhat infamous crash there that happily walked away from, but looks like Colin is going to be leading them to the field here. Yep, so he's going to be taking this final corner here, going up the hill. The pace car should duck into the pits, and we should be underway shortly.
Colin currently with a very nice lead on the rest of the field, and it looks like he is taking off right away. And here comes the start finish. There we go. So she should be, there we go, green flag, and the time is ticking down.
Colin McLean almost starting on, well, basically did start on the front row by himself, as second place Russell Cow was basically beside John Kuzlin as they came to the line. That gave Colin a nice clean break. As you can see, the 4 GTs and the Cadillacs are still there because of the way the Cadillacs qualify. They're mixed up with the 4 GT, so they're going to have a few laps of battling before the race pace of the 4 GT is able to power through the Cadillacs.
I want to say that John Kuzla had a fantastic start there to take second place pretty much instantaneously right off the line there, so he's up behind Colin. We'll see if he's going to be able to hold that.
And a very nice pass there by Brian Carey, getting past John Kelly.
All right, John Kelly is trying to, he's regained his position, but he seems to be struggling a little bit at the beginning here, as probably the same wheel problem that he suffered during the pace lap, as Chuck Chambliss is able to get by him. John Kelly, I believe, now down to 12th position.
It also looks like John Kelly is sporting some damage there on the front left. You can see it right there.
And also having a wheel issue can kind of make you lose confidence in your car. You might not... Before, when you would be confident taking a corner faster, you might be worried that the wheel might cut out again and cause you to, go flying into the wall because you can't make a corner. So I think he's probably, as Kevin Sawah makes a very nice pass there, and that moves him up another spot. But I think he might be kind of just settling back in and trying to regain some of the confidence with his wheel, and that might be why he's a bit slower than some of the other guys right now.
Looks like Brian Carey has a very good run here going up on the hill, although we're going to switch over to Timothy Stoll and Daniel Gralti, and that is the battle for fourth.
Daniel moving right then left to try to break the draft a little bit of Timothy Stoll. Tim Stoll nowhere near, not close enough to make a pass, so that's a okay move there by Mr. Gralti, as Patrick Spence now is running down Marty Jeffries, it looks like, for 5th place in the 4 GTs. This is a good track for all these classes here because there's a lot of long straightaways. It really gets a chance for all these cars to stretch their legs. The Daytona Prototype has much better cornering speed. Well, not much better, but significantly better cornering speed than the other two classes. So sometimes in the tighter tracks, you really don't get to see what all these cars can do. And the 4GTs, the Daytona Prototypes, and even the Cadillacs, to some extent, all have pretty good top speeds. Fords and the Daytona Prototypes in particular have really good top speeds here. As we're on board with Daniel Caroni in 7th place right now, chasing down Lance Snyder in the number 75 Ford GT with a Cadillac in front of him, so they're still mixed up a little bit in those back two classes.
And John Kelly having an issue there as in turn 8 just overshoots his braking point a little bit. Now he's kind of having on the wrong side of the circuit. They're going through the carousel, getting on the grass. Luckily, didn't cause a spin or anything, but he did lose a spot to, I believe that is Mike Taylor, and that will drop him down to 12th, and Mike Taylor up to 11th.
Yeah, he did well not to spin, but I'll tell you, that is my worst turn on this track. It always feels like I should be taking it faster, or maybe I turn in too early, or I don't know. I find new and interesting ways to mess that turn up almost every lap.
Yeah, the carousel does require a lot of patience because you enter it in the wrong way, you're going to get a lot of understeer. And if you get understeer early in the corner, that's a long corner, you'll have understeer all the way through that corner. So you really got to enter it right. You got to enter at the right speed and basically kind of carry your momentum as best as possible without scrubbing off, either getting a little bit oversteer or understeer, as Ricardo Machuca and Mark Payne are having a fantastic battle. One thing I want to point out with the onboard camera here that I'm noticing right now is it looks like there's a little bit of zoom on the camera, so the actual sensation and speed you get in the Daytona Prototypes here is not quite what you would see when you're actually racing. The camera position, actually your driver's eye position will be a little bit further back, so it seems almost like it's in slow motion there, but it's not. They're going at a pretty high rate of speed as Mark Payne and Machuca are now side by side going into turn 1. Faster line around the outside potentially for Machuca, but Mark Payne has it on the inside. Oh, could he get the undercut coming off the corner as going down into turn 3? I don't think he's quite close enough, but it looks like he's going to stick his nose in there. And no, it looks like Mark Payne still has the position. Now, this is actually one of the bigger drafting tracks we're going to see here too. That even if Mark is faster than Ricardo, Ricardo's going to be able to use a draft in all these long straightaways and be able to stick with him and maybe have another pass going into the turn 5 there. We see some of the Ford GTs here with Marty Jeffries, and it looks like actually Ricardo has made the pass on Mark just up ahead of the road there. So Ricardo back into 2nd place. And up ahead we have Daniel Peroni, who is sitting right now in 5th place in the Ford GT, is basically battling with 2nd and 3rd place in the Cadillacs. So it's going to take a little while for I think those classes to sort themselves out.
Yeah, we saw Daniel Coroni and Marty Jeffries put a pretty good move on Lance Snyder. He looks like he went wide going down into turn 5, and it's not bad if you go wide because there is quite a bit of runoff there and allows you to get back on the circuit, but you do lose time, and if there's cars that are going past you, you have to slow up and wait for them. So that dropped Lance Snyder down a couple spots, and Daniel Coroni and Marty Jeffries up a few.
There's actually the hurry down section there heading into the carousel. Very, very similar corners, the two of them.
Yeah, you mentioned the drafting. One interesting factor there is that the Cadillacs, the faster Cadillac drivers who can keep up with the Ford GTs fairly well, excuse me, actually benefit quite a bit from following a Ford GT because where they may not have that straight line speed, they gain some on those straights, and obviously since they are keeping up so well, they are clearly faster in the corners, so it really benefits them, and I think we'll see that coming up a little bit later in the race, being a factor among the top in the Cadillac.
Timothy Stoller just had a little bit of an off there, so he's dropped back behind Carlos Passos. And now Russell Cow is hustling John Kuzlin for 2nd place pretty hard. John did a pretty good job sticking with Colin McLean, but he's about a 2.5 up the road. And we're going to see, going through the kink here, there'll be a little bit of a lift, see if Russell, how close he can keep to John going through here. Well, I guess not, so we're going to go back to Todd Carver in the Cadillac.
Yeah, we saw something we don't see all that often from John Kuzlin, and he put a couple wheels off. Normally he's one of the... Oh, and that is Mark Payne, very slow. Looks like he had a bit of a oversteer coming out of turn 5, and looks like he kept it off the wall, and he'll be able to continue. Just going back to John Kuzlin quickly. We don't see him. He's one of our cleanest drivers, as we see Passos and Stoll battling it out as they head down towards the final corner right now. Okay, I will get my original statement out. We don't often see John Kuzlin putting the wheel off, and that was a very rare moment that he gets a 1x for going off the circuit. And we saw that allowed Russell Cow to really pull up on the back and apply pressure. He's currently just about a tenth off the back of his rear bumper, so that could be another... Oh, well, we were watching it right there. You could saw that he's pretty close. And another close battle right here is Stoll and Passos as they are... battling quite... Oh, and Stoll's going to go on the inside, going into turn 3, and he'll easily take the position away from Passos. See if Passos can't try and draft his way back around as they head down towards turn 5.
We do have quite the train of cars here going down the long back straightaway heading into turn 5. Turn 5 is going to be very, very heavy braking, so let's hopefully everyone get through this all right, because they will stack up pretty quick. Oh, Passos into the back of Stoll. Doesn't look like there's any damage there, but it gave Mike Kelly the opportunity to come up the inside into 6, and it looks like Mike has the positioning on... Oh,
nope,
Passos is turning in.
With a little bit of help, it looks like Passos is around, and man, that made quite a mess.
Yeah, it looked like Carlos had good braking around the outside, but unfortunately it looked like he, with Mike Kelly, had nowhere to go, and Passos turned down just enough that Kelly got into the side of him. Didn't look like Mike ran all that wide in that corner, but it was really hard to tell from that angle. Regardless, contact was made, and a couple positions lost for those guys.
One thing I noticed just now, a big thank you to Mike Kelly for putting the number 2 front and center on his paint so that we can disambiguate him there.
And I like how Daniel just possibly created a new word. If not, it's not one that is used very often in the English language, but I think we should use that one more often.
No, that's a real word. And here we have Timothy Johnson and John Rasudos. Timothy Johnson coming from the oval side, and we are happy to welcome him here on the road track. And although we're going to switch back, John Kuzlin with Russell Cow. Russell on the inside. He's almost got it. Russell's got it if he can hold on to it into the next turn, which, oh yes, he does. No problem. So yeah, Russell Cow up to second.
Yeah, getting right over to the left-hand side of the track there is key for Russell, because if he was pinched over to the right-hand side going into turn 3, it would have given John a huge slingshot going down that back straightaway there. But as we cut back now to the Cadillacs here, there's a lot of action happening on the track. It's not much. The director doesn't know quite what to look at, but we'll focus on these guys here battling for 8th in the Cadillac.
Well, I'm glad to see that we can get some shots here of Gilles Moret, who last race had a great battle with John Rasudos, but unfortunately, for whatever reason, the camera couldn't attach to John. Oh, as Tim McLeish goes off, that's the rear view, and
that's the last corner. It looks like heading up the hill. Okay, so it looks like he's all right, but that was a scary moment for Tim. There's walls all over the place here, and the track is not that wide. There's decent runoff, but anytime you go off the track like that and get back on with no damage is especially with an hour and 48 minutes left, 49 minutes almost, it's live to fight another day. And there's John Rasudos right there. As speaking of which, him and Timothy Johnston are having a good battle for 10th place in the Cadillacs right now. Or 9th place, I should say, battle for 9th. Now, it doesn't look like Timothy's in a hurry to get by here, but he's just going to try to shape him up, and he's got a good run coming off at 3, so if he's able to make, like I say, we're early in the race here, so a lot of guys, absolute positioning right now isn't as important, so the urgency in their overtaking probably won't be nearly as high as it will be in the last half an hour to 15 minutes sort of thing, so and we just drop back to another Can-Am Crackers racer leading someone else. Looks like that should be Don Hunter in front of Jerry Mooresdorf, and Don Hunter is obviously much slower there because that was quite the speed difference well before the braking. So
that was like Stephen Clark there.
That was Stephen Clark? Oh, it was. I'm used to seeing the blue stripes on Don's car, so I must have misread that.
And we're going to jump on board now with Carlos Passos, as he is currently running in 11th place. We know that he had that incident with Mike Kelly earlier in the race, and he's trying to battle his way back. Currently right on the back bumper of Mike Taylor, see what kind of run he gets going down the straight. These cars do benefit a lot from the draft, and let's see if he can take advantage of it.
They do benefit a lot from the draft, but really there's not a lot of... they don't cut a huge hole in the air as Carlos makes the pass relatively easy and holds onto the track there, in case he ran wide. But I mean, they don't cut as big a hole into the air as some of the other classes may do. So I was noticing during the race that while you're able to pull up and maintain a gap behind someone with a draft, that you don't really slingshot by them like you might expect. It looks like sometimes, in some cases, the Cadillacs may be doing here as Mark Payne is battling his way forward, trying to get around Todd Carver. Ooh, Todd really cuts the corner tight there. Mark didn't quite get far enough alongside, and good racing by both guys there, with Lauren Bateman just kind of waiting in the wings there in 5th place to see if these guys make small contact together. Oh no, it looks like Todd Carver had a huge moment coming off turn 3, so that's exactly what Lauren was waiting for there. He's picked up 4th place, and now he's got the draft of Mark Payne, and we'll see if he can make a run going into turn 5 here. I don't think he's quite close enough to make a decent attempt to know he backs out of it, so...
Yeah, and with Payne holding the inside of the track, there's really no opportunity for him to get around. He could try and go on the right side, but there's no reason to. There's no way you can get around that way unless Payne made a mistake.
Okay, and we're back to Todd Carver here. He's right up in the back of Lauren Bateman, so he really wants to take that place back as soon as possible after that... call it a little bit of a tank slapper there, as he got pretty sideways coming off of turn 3. Actually, a good chance to see the different lines that the guys are taking. There's a few lines you can take through the carousel here. Some of them you'll go through it faster, and you'll pick up a lot of time there through the middle part of the corner, but others, if you enter a little bit slower, you can pick up a little bit more time on the exit. So ultimate lap times, it might work out, but when you're racing someone's doing it one way, I mean, you're gonna have to take the advantage and try it the other way to see if you can get anything on them. Colin McLean got held up badly by the Cadillac there going into the carousel, and looks like he's gonna go around the outside of him, and it was a close one. It was Jerry Mooresdorf in the Cadillac, and gave Russell Cal the opportunity to close right up in his tail there.
And remember, Russell Cal was fighting with John Kuzan a bit earlier in the race, and after a few laps, we've cut away from them, and now that we've come back, he is about 2.3 seconds ahead of John Kuzan. So Russell Cal seeming to have the pace. I know traffic can play a part of that, as we saw Colin McLean get held up as he went through the carousel. But Russell Cal seems to be on a charge, looking to grab the lead from Colin McLean.
And this is where Todd's going to try to get back at Lauren Bateman there, because his competition that he was battling with before, Mark Payne, is disappearing up the road ahead of him, so he wants to make that move sooner rather than later. This is the battle for the lead right now with our pretty much identical lap qualifiers, Colin McLean and Russell Cal. Colin having the 1/1000th edge over him in the qualifying, and as the action on the track, as you can see right here, the difference between the two of them is equally as close. Technically not equally as close, obviously, as they're a little further away than 1/1000th, but you get the idea. And just so you know, that is not actually a transport truck over there, that is a sign on the bridge. So just in case anyone was worried that that truck was in a precarious position over the racetrack, it's just a sign. I hazard to guess that no one was actually worried about that.
Yeah, it seems someone figured out long ago that on those pedestrian bridges, if you don't put up walls to block people, that they'll just stand there and clog up the bridge. You always get those big walls, and in that case they have some cheese advertised.
Well, it is Wisconsin, so it seems fitting.
Got the Speedville and the Johnson Brats on that one.
Johnsonville Brats, probably the most aptly named product in the world today. So we got Gilles Moret now. He's battling with Ryan Huff coming through Canada Corner.
And Gilles turned in a little bit too early right there, and you could see that he didn't get a very good line through, and had to hold up on his exit, or else he would have had a tire in the dirt, and probably would have spun the car in that case.
We got the battle for 5th place, it looks like. Marty Jeffries is trying to chase down Daniel Coroni and keeping it with about 2nd, but not really close enough to challenge at this point. Oh, and Anthony Muniz and Chuck Chambliss here. Looks like Muniz has got a run based on the traffic there of Gary Morsdorf, and he's got to the inside, but he's not able to slingshot past. His relative positioning is almost equal. Does he have enough room on the inside? Nope, he's thought better of it there, as didn't quite kick far enough alongside. So you really got to balance that out, because when you're going into those passing areas like that, and you try to take the inside, especially in a relatively fast corner like turn 1, you really need to be right alongside before you get to turn in. Otherwise, it's probably better to back off and try again later for a heavier braking area.
We will jump to another close battle between Brian Carey and Mike Kelly. Oh, and Mike Kelly getting very wide coming out of turn 5. Dips the tire in the grass. You can see just behind him, looks like I believe that was Chuck Chambliss, also did pretty much the same thing. Doesn't seem to affect Mike Kelly all that much. He managed to maintain his speed quite well, and the gap between himself and Brian Carey, as we'll jump back to the battle just behind them.
Yeah, Anthony Muniz here, right behind Chuck Chambliss. Pretty good battle for both the Kaiser Racing cars right now, in 6th and 8th respectively. So we're going to head through the carousel here. Hopefully we can stick with Anthony for just a second. Okay, there we go. Anyways, outside the car now. I was hoping we could stick on board as we went through the carousel, but get an idea. He's going through the carousel into the kink here with Don Norris up ahead, and the about a lap down right now. And oh man, Anthony get a nice 4-wheel drift coming through the kink there, really trying to keep the gap to Chuck in check. He didn't want to lose touch with him going around Don down the inside of Canada corner. Not quite able to get it done. So I mean, it's good to keep a look there. Basically what Anthony's doing is trying to remind Chuck that he's there, kind of size up the passes, and also too that if Chuck, say, brakes a little earlier than unexpectedly, then Anthony's got the inside all lined up and ready to go when he doesn't drive into the back of him. So kind of dual purpose there to kind of either psych him out, remind him you're there, but also in an attempt not to run in the back of him.
It looks like we have a bit of traffic coming up in front of the battle here for 5th place between Kelly and Carey. Oh, and he ends up going wide. Comes up back onto the circuit pretty close to Brian Carey. Luckily, Carey was able to spot him and take the inside as they head down to turn 3. Another Cadillac just ahead of them, so that could prove to be useful and for Brian Carey as he tries to make up the distance between himself and Kelly. Although Kelly looks like he's going to catch him going down into turn 5, and that's going to help create a bigger gap between it looks like the Cadillac a little squirrely under braking. Let's see if Brian, this will be crucial if Brian can get through right here.
Yeah, because as you saw there, Mike Kelly had to take that compromised inside line, and Brian Carey pretty much got a proper run off the corner and got by without any trouble heading under the bridge. So, yeah, I think that worked out pretty well. Oh, excellent. I'm glad they got that. Ah, yes. So, as you saw,
wow.
I got a little bit wide going through the kink. I almost held it off the wall, but wasn't quite able to, unfortunately.
No, that didn't look like it. It looked... From our perspective, it looked a bit like a love tab. How hard and how much damage did that actually do to your car?
Yeah, it wasn't too much damage. I was slightly off pace after that, but initially I wasn't even sure if I hit the wall or not. It was fairly
okay. Yeah, that was such good driving. I really wanted you to save it because you did such a great job. It's just a little bit too much and. But still, that was at least you could have done a lot worse going through that corner, so you did a pretty good job to save it.
Yeah, many a race has ended in that fashion before.
Oh, Timothy Stahl is into the pits. I was at a 4th place too, so I'm not sure exactly what happened there, but it's a little too early for a scheduled pit stop right now. Because this is a 2-hour race, most of these drivers here will be... Well, that is an awesome camera shot. Sorry. Anyways, most of the drivers here, because it's a 2-hour race, will be taking the full 14 gallons of fuel, which would put their first stop probably at with about an hour or 20 left, at about the 40-minute mark or thereabouts. So maybe a little bit further than that, actually. So Timothy Stahl into the pits, and it looks like he's there for a while as he's not coming out anytime soon. It doesn't looks like he's taking some damage. There are reports of soiled shorts down in Canada Corner, so it looks like Tim had a little bit of an off down there and is making repairs as we speak.
So are you saying this is a one-stopper for the Daytona Prototypes?
No, it's a two-stopper, but because it's a two-stopper, but it's a 2-hour race itself, so there's not a huge advantage to... I mean, the first stint, a lot of times, like say in a regular 70-minute races, you're looking at putting in about 19 gallons for the whole race. So you could start with 10 gallons, 9 in the second stop, or call it 10 and 10 thereabouts. But because we're running a longer stint, it's more beneficial to probably these guys here, you know, in the 12 to 14 gallon range on their first stint. Somewhere along those lines too, so there'll be a lot of guys running probably about 4 or 5 laps longer than they would if this was only a 70 lap race.
And this has become quite a good race in the Daytona Prototype class. We've got the battle for the lead right here. Colin McLean leading with Russell Kyle just behind him. And then go back a couple more cars and you've got the battle between Mike Kelly and Brian Carey. That is for 4th and 5th, and then just behind them Chuck Chambliss and Anthony Muniz for 6th and 7th, and then you've got kind of the odd man out, Daniel Gralty, who isn't really battling with anybody right now. He's just kind of turning laps. Also, we did have Timothy Stahl in there, but as we just pointed out not that long ago, he did take damage in Canada Corner, and so that has pretty much put him out of any contention for the top spots in the class, unfortunately. But really a lot of good battling going on between the Daytona Prototypes. And here's another good battle right here between John Kelly and Mike Taylor.
Actually, just going through the Daytona Prototypes, we've actually lost John Kuzlin about 4 laps ago, and Kevin Savoy, one of the perennial front runners. We didn't see how it happened, but he's been gone for quite some time now. We've been paying closely enough attention to the timing and scoring, so we didn't see it on the monitors here, but both Kuzlin, who was running up front, battling in second place and third place with Russell Cow, and Kevin Savoy, who I guess is perennial front runner, is they're both out of the race along with Timothy Stahl, looks like.
Yeah, just checking on the timing and scoring now. I'm not seeing Timothy Stahl being scored in the pits anymore, so it looks like they have decided to retire his car, unfortunately. Don Norris will take his spot in 12th. So that's unfortunate to see those guys retire so early.
Oh, and Mike Kelly there got held up behind Mark Payne in the Cadillac there, so it allowed Carey to get a good run down to Canada Corner, but not good enough to make any attempt at a pass.
Yeah, but like we said at the start of the program, the Daytona Prototypes are close to going flat through there. You do a little lift and you're back on the throttle, where the Cadillacs are braking. You'll see John Kelly should be held up quite a bit. Yeah, there is you can see the gap that was able to be pulled by Mike Taylor, so that really allowed Carey to catch right on the back, take advantage of some of the draft, although there's quite a bit of traffic here. As you can see, there's a Cadillac, and not too far ahead of them, a Ford GT, so this is going to be interesting for the next couple of corners.
Yeah, actually that was doubly bad for John Kelly, because the Cadillac was held up itself going through the kink, since it was side by side with, I believe that was Mike Taylor, right? Yeah, and so it was even slower than usual.
And one of the things too I'm noticing is some tracks, because a lot of the there's maybe like sweeping corners, left, right, lefts. Here at Road America, really good chance. I mean, even if you get held up by a slower class, normally it's just for a corner. You have to wait around the corner till you get to the exit, and you can normally get a good run and get on the inside going into the next corner. So it's one of those things I've been noticing as the guys have been cutting through traffic, that sometimes they get cut up pretty badly, but it's not normally for a series of corners as we've seen, like for instance at Mosport, which we were just at, which was just a series of left, right corners that if you got caught behind a slower car and he wasn't willing to let you by, then you're going to be behind him for quite some time. Oh, it looks like Timothy Stahl is... comes out of the pits. I'm not exactly sure, Dan, you know what those signs mean. It said 77 out, so...
yeah, if it means that he exited out.
And now he's back in. So I think he's going to stick around and try to get that car repaired, but judging by the contact that we heard from the corner workers there, it was quite an impact, so there'll be a lot of work down in the pits for the 77 crew. These guys are just kind of plugging along there. First and second, Colin McLean, Russell Cow, about a half second apart. And Lance Snyder in the number 75 Ford GT Doctor Who car with, looks like, Todd Carver right behind him.
And Marty Jeffries, he was slow and then he spun right there, and I don't know if he caught it through the trees, but Lance Snyder just got right by him. Tim McLeish coming up on the scene of the incident, and there we see Marty Jeffries, definitely some damage to the rear wing.
Yeah, that was quite a odd place to spin. Normally you spin coming out of Canada corner and into the tires on the right side, or you go wide because you miss your braking point. That was a really strange spot to spin the car. Yeah,
I agree. I've gone right many a time into the tires.
Yes.
I've never done quite that.
And while we're paying attention to their battles here, this is a battle for lead in the Cadillacs as Ricardo Machuca is right up on James Cullen's tail as we're heading down the back straightaway to turn 5. But we've got some faster Daytona Prototypes coming into the mix here, so maybe Ricardo could use that to his advantage and take it up the inside here of Cullen for the lead. Ooh, Cullen takes a very, very, very wide line going through turn 5. Somewhat unintentionally, it looks like, because he's conceded the lead to Machuca. And he's got some more Daytona Prototypes coming up behind him. This is quite the smorgasbord of GTC racers here. So you have Daytona Prototypes, Cadillacs, and Ford GTs all on the same piece of tarmac. Alright, so now we go, okay, and we're going to cut away from that to another battle for the lead. Back to the Daytona Prototypes. Russell Cow in 23, second place, right behind Colin McLean in the number 68 ISRA machine with the St. Andrew's Cross very nicely done on the roof of that car. So it's a very sharp looking ISRA car there. Russell Cow, on the other hand, decent enough car, I guess, but two cars side by side together, a relatively basic car. So hopefully Russell can get some sponsors coming up for possibly the last race of the season, or the last few races of the season. Yeah, it looks like, well, we're going to cut away from it now because it looks like it's been status quo for quite some time, so hopefully we cut back if anything changes. But Ricardo Machuca not able to get away from James Cullen as they're going up the pit straightaway here. That's actually very steeply uphill where they are right now. And you can see in the draft that James Cullen is pulling a little bit on him, but really not near close enough to make it any difference, with Daniel Coroni in close pursuit of those guys, and Mark Payne will make this a three-way battle for the lead, it looks like.
Yeah, here's where my my slight damage loosening up the rear end cost me, and I was running just about the exact same speed as these guys.
This is Dan saying he's going to be a pretty best seat in the house for this Cadillac battle here, right on the track, right with them. Looks like James was struggling a little bit in the downshift there, but he got it in the right gear and braked properly to get it around the corner there. That is a really fun corner there, turn 6, because the way it's uphill and the way you go through it, I mean, you're pretty much sliding and drifting it all the way around in any classic car, it seems. It's the same with the Riley when you're doing it right. Basically, if you're under control in that corner, you're not going nearly fast enough. As Carlos Passos here is closing in on Anthony Muniz, it looks like that's for battle for 7th place right now in the Daytona Prototype. That's a really good shot there coming out of the kink. Good sensation of how fast these guys are going through there. So yeah, we're going to come through these final few corners here up until the final corner, which will take us up into the long straightaway to see if Carlos is able to get a run on them. But we're cut back to the lead battle now as we're coming through. Looks like Daniel Verness in the number 33 Turn 1 Heroes machine. Oh, there we go. And as you can see, Carlos in the draft, but not close enough. Didn't get a good enough run off the final corner to make any impression on Muniz here, as Muniz missed the apex by about a foot, which has allowed Passos to get a little closer to him as we go into turn 3, and we're going to see if he's off the apex by quite a bit there, so Carlos well in the draft, and we'll see if he can make anything of this.
Feeling the pressure there, it looks like.
Yeah, Carlos not close enough to make a pass there, so the slots in behind Muniz as they go through turn 5. Both looks like Carlos just falling a little bit off the track there, kicking up a little bit of dirt, but a little black strip on the end there. You can pretty much use all of that and as a for your exit. So if you actually cut it off a little bit and stay in the actual, as people have been saying, the asphalt. I will try to correct that as we go along, but. You can use that black rumble strip if you're going in there a little bit too hot. Really, it's just a different line, so I mean, you'll get a little bit of speed on the entry, but maybe lose a little bit on the exit. But it's just different things, and it gives you a little bit of margin for error too if you come in there a little bit too hot. As we're with Jerry Morsdorf all by himself, now on board with him all by himself.
I think he was getting past John Residuos in the pits.
It looks like there is some black smoke coming from I'm assuming a car in the pits, unless we have some sort of fuel or oil fire. I'm guessing someone had taken some sort of engine damage and is in the pits right now to see if they can't get that repaired.
That might have been Timothy Stoll. I don't know if he smokes or not, but probably a bad idea to light up while you're waiting for repairs. If anyone's ever seen Zoolander before, they know the dangers of smoking while refueling. Or gasoline fights, which hopefully was not happening in the pits. We like to keep it a professional atmosphere at these races. Alright, well, this is an extremely close battle for the lead. I can't help but feeling a little bit bored as they seem to be just sticking nose to tail right now, and we cut back away from the leaders being boring to hopefully a little bit more excitement here, back for 7th and 8th place.
Yeah, they haven't been, I don't think, much more than half a second apart from each other since probably about 10 minutes in or so.
Also, too, this is a very long race, and if you can save a little bit of fuel, once you get to the final pit stop, you actually can save a little bit of time by not having to take as much fuel. So maybe Russ is just not in a hurry to get around Collins, saving a little bit of fuel. You can actually save at this track, because of the long straightaways, a ton of fuel by just sticking in the draft to someone else. So we've got an hour and 24 minutes left. There's really not any urgency for Russell to make a move on Colin. He's battling him for the lead, so the leaders aren't getting away. The leader's right in front of him, and he's got about just under a 9-second gap back to 3rd place to Daniel Grolty. So there's a quick note too that it looks like Brian Carey has got around Mike Kelly for 4th place. So
got around and put close a 1.2 second gap over, which isn't big. A bit of traffic that Brian Carey gets stuck behind could close that up, but it is a gap nonetheless.
Back to the battle for the Cadillac lead here, and all three, Ricardo Machuca, James Cullen, as you can see here, Mark Payne, just out of the shot, are all within a second and a half of each other for the lead of the Cadillac. So I believe that we've had this, I forget the track, I apologize, but we have seen this before. So I want to say Road Atlanta. Road Atlanta sounds familiar. Those guys are battling hard, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, yep. We had a very, very good battle in the Cadillacs at Road Atlanta. Went down to pretty much the end of the race before it was decided.
Now going into turn 5 there, that camera view, I've noticed it in real life before too, watching the Indy cars and the kart series race at Road America, is going down to turn 5 from that view, because it goes downhill in the braking zone. You almost get like a kind of a false sensation that they're accelerating as they hit the brakes, because the car, as soon as they get on the brakes, they're basically dropping down the hill. So it looks like they're actually speeding up slightly when really they're getting on the brakes. It's kind of an interesting kind of optical thing as you're going down there, but it's a really, I mean, you notice it from on board, but it's kind of a very it'd be a very good place to watch a race from. A lot of action there in all series that I've seen race there. As we watch James chase down Ricardo. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast, going through the track map, the fact that Road America, as you've got Jeremy Burris, looks like he might have had an off. I saw some smoke there, but because it hasn't changed much since 1955, it's kind of interesting to see, the staying power of a track like Road America. Road America is one of the classic road circuits in the world, in particular in the United States. Unfortunately, because of its not because of its age, but I think because of its remote location, things like Formula One are really not practical to hold a Formula One race here, even though I think it would be a fantastic Formula One track. That's one of the things I do know from the tracks that I visited as Timothy Stoll. It is Timothy Stoll back on track, so he's pushed James Cullen wide, so looks like Mark Payne's going to have a run on him to potentially... Nope, not close enough as Mark stays behind with Daniel Coroni right there. But like I was saying, some of the great American road racing tracks are literally in the middle of nowhere. Like Laguna Seca is up in the hills in California, and it is so hard to get to. So I can't imagine all that would, the circus that is Formula One running up the hills to get down there. It's hard enough for all the racing series as it is. It's the fun roads to drive, no question about it, but tough to get there as we're watching Todd Carver in the pits.
Yeah, Watkins Glen, right near my hometown, is pretty much in the middle of nowhere. It takes me a while to get to Lime Rock Park, and there's nothing but hills around there. So yeah, absolutely, we love to put our racetracks right in the middle of nowhere.
Can you imagine Formula One at Lime Rock? That would be insane.
Well, thanks to iRacing, we don't have to imagine it.
Yeah, and having run the simulated Formula One car there at Lime Rock, it is insane. So, lesson learned, I guess. But speaking of tracks in the middle of nowhere, I'm actually really looking forward to, and hopefully going ahead next year, the Formula One Grand Prix in Weehawken, New Jersey at the Port Imperial Circuit, which would be a new temporary street circuit, but by having been there a few times before and knowing the layout of the track, would be absolutely fantastic for Formula One cars to be whipping around through there, through the Palisades.
That's next year? Are they going to be doing two races, or is the Road of the Americas only going to get one Formula One showing?
Nope, ideally there'll be the basically what will happen is the guys battling for the lead here still, but okay, they got through there. But yeah, no, the idea is that the New Jersey race will kind of piggyback with the Canadian Grand Prix, so they'll run back-to-back weekends. And then the Circuit of the Americas will still have its November date at the end of the year. And the thing with the Circuit of the Americas being in Austin, Texas, I mean, it's interesting that there has been a U.S. Grand Prix for so long, and there could potentially be two of them, but the location of the Austin track is very, very centralized. So you've got the whole Latin America, you got Mexico, even like Brazil, Dallas-Fort Worth. Strange to say, he has a huge airport in Austin right there, but they're within about 2-3 hour flight of a huge Formula One market, so more logical location for a Formula One track than you may think, but they should be running back-to-back themselves. I mean, sorry, not back-to-back, but both tracks getting time in any given year.
Alright, well that's actually pretty exciting, and man, I was thinking about going to Austin, but New Jersey's not too far away.
Yeah,
well, ideally I go to both of them.
If you, I think if you search on YouTube somewhere, I believe, I forget which driver it was, but might have been Sebastian Vettel that kind of drove around the suggested circuit they have kind of planned out for New Jersey, and it looks like it's going to be a really great circuit. Like Brian said, I'm really looking forward to seeing how that turns out. The Circuit of the Americas, as long as that happens, I know there's some people that still kind of doubt. And from everything I've heard, sounds like it's going to, but that also looks like a pretty good circuit. Looking forward to both of those and getting some more Formula One here in the States. I think we could use it.
Yeah, I know it was Sebastian Vettel. It was they gave him they closed off the roads, gave him an Infiniti G37, and told him to obey the speed limits, which he did not do.
Yeah, well, he just thought it was a German Autobahn, and unfortunately.
Well, it was closed off, so it was a very, very good exhibition, and it looks like it should be a good track. But I mean, yeah, like I say, we're above all, racing fans, and the fact that potentially I am Canadian myself, obviously, but the ease to get to either New Jersey, which my parents actually live near there, or to Austin, which is a relatively short flight from Detroit, which is close to me, both very, very appealing to my racing fanism, I guess. I'm lost for words a little bit for exactly what I'll call that, but So we've got Mike Taylor and John Kelly battling for 8th place right now. So there's Chuck Chambliss coming through. It looks like Colin McLean is into the pits. Our race leader is, or did he just come out of the pits?
Well, there's currently about a 2-second gap between race leader Colin McLean and Russell Cow in second. I'm not sure exactly what is going on there, although that gap is shrinking according to our timing and scoring, so that'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, as you can see, it looks like it's about pit stop time for some of these Daytona prototypes, and yeah, we're pretty deep into the race here. Normally in our 70-minute races, you'd see it right around the 35-minute mark. We'd start seeing some pit stops, but right now we're almost at the 45-minute mark, and a lot of these guys haven't yet pitted. So Mike Kelly being one of those. Mike Kelly's has made a trip to the pit, so he's back in 7th place. And after that previous off, James Cullen is right back with Ricardo Machuca. And I see where I went wrong there. That was Mike Taylor's 66 in the pits, not Colin McLean's 68. So just need to clean the glasses off a little bit, and I'll be set to go for the rest of the race.
And just like the battle for first place in the Daytona Prototypes, it looks like we're basically seeing a mirror of that battle here in the Cadillacs as Ricardo Machuca, although these guys have changed the positions a bit more than we've seen in the Daytona Prototypes, but it's still Ricardo Machuca and James Cullen fighting it out for first place. And then just behind them, Mark Payne. He's kind of been lurking behind them for about a second to a second and a half behind. I think he's kind of just settled in and turning laps and letting those guys duke it out for now until they get closer towards the end of this race.
It looks like Carlos Passos is just in the pits there. John Kelly, Carl Mumbauer all on the pit stop as well. The Daytona Prototype, so those are starting to happen a little bit. There's Patrick Spence in the 4GT, about nearly a minute behind Chris Dameron Jr. right now, so I don't know if pit stops have come into play or if he is just getting it handed to him. I'm not quite sure. I'm going to assume he's made one pit stop.
And Colin McLean and Russell Cow both heading into the pits at the same time. Wonder if Russell Cow can see if he can get out of the pits before Colin McLean and make a pass through pit stops. We know that Brian pointed out earlier, sticking in someone's draft over a long majority of the race like Russell Cow has been able to do might save you a little bit of fuel. On that saves you, that fuel saved gets turns into less time in the pit, so that will be interesting to see if Cow can pull out a pass in the pit lane.
Alright, well apparently it looks like I just took the lead there, so that's pit stop driven, obviously.
But for the time being, I'll just point out it's a Kaiser Racing 1-2, even if it's just for a lap. Oh, and I just thought about it might happen. Looks like Russell Cow has been able to come out in front of Colin McLean. I'm guessing it's that bit of fuel that he was able to save drafting behind McLean for so long, and that is going to elevate Cow up into first place as long as there's no mistakes after pit stop cycle through, of course.
Yeah, we'll see how Colin fights back for here. Maybe he was just keeping Russell, kind of toying with him a little bit, just running his laps, but we'll see now if Russell actually does have the pace to pull away, or if Colin's got a little bit left in the tank there to run him down. I suspect he'll be able to stick right with them. Like I say, their pace in qualifying was, for lack of, finite measurements, identical down to the thousandths of a second pretty much, so, well, exactly 1,000. So we'll see if that translates here and if Colin can kind of stick with them.
Oh, and there is a
that'll
mistake
help.
I was just talking about, and that's going to
Oh,
allow
man.
McLean to drive right around the outside of Russell Cow as they head through the carousel. And, well, all that work saving that fuel, drafting behind McLean seems to have kind of not paid off there in the end, although there was a bit of traffic holding McLean up, so Kyle might be able to battle back there. But it's still a costly mistake by Kyle, allowing McLean to challenge him for what is essentially first position.
Yeah, welcome back, status quo. Oops, got the leader in the pits right now, the Daytona Prototypes, so it looks like next time around McLean will... Yep, looks like McLean will regain the lead next time around as we come through here. And again, we have an hour and 11 minutes left in this race, so no damage for Russell Cow there, so not a huge worry. I mean, obviously, well, not obviously, but potentially would have liked to have led that lap, but I mean, that's the way things work out sometimes, so still very much in this fight.
Oh yeah, he is by no means out of this battle, but if both of these drivers are very, very similar in pace as we saw in the qualifying session with McLean just barely beating out Russell Cow, that I guess it's possible that could come down to being the move that determines the win if both of these guys are so evenly paced that they can't actually fight their way around each other without mistakes happening.
Whoa, Chuck Chambliss, huge moment
Keeps
there.
it on the off the wall rather, so could have ended the race there easily.
Yeah, I saw in the turn in there that the wheel went all the way over to the right and the car just kept on going, so huge lateral slide there for Chuck, but luckily he kind of caught the gravel and was able to keep it off the wall, so a little bit of pride hurt there, but the car looks like it's alright. Oops, some tire smoke up ahead. I don't know who that is. That is... Oh, yeah.
I think that would be the 79 of Brian Carey. Looks like he locked the brakes up or something going into turn 6.
Yeah, I'd just a little self-commentary there. I had spent all of practice and all of the race up to this point locking up the front tires going into those slow corners there, and for whatever reason when I grabbed the brakes there, the rear is locked up and I went right around. And I must say, I think when I got back to the pits, I think I was race-ending damage there too, because I've definitely been in races before where I've had incidents early on in a 2-hour race, and if your car is drivable, I mean, you'll drive it, but it's just terribly brutal to drive 2 hours with a damaged car. Oh, and speaking of damaged car, Ricardo Machuca fighting for the lead, and the Cadillacs there is battling something. The wing is obviously damaged. He's damaged. He's sneaking up the track. He's back to the pits. John Kelly is into the wall. I don't know what has happened here. It's been pit stops have obviously turned things upside down because the things had settled down, not a lot of incidents, and suddenly we've got 3 or 4 cars with what appears to be potentially race-ending damage. And Gilles Moret going around here in turn 5, into the wall. Like I say, what is going on? Some prankster has obviously thrown some sort of oil over the track to cause all these incidents, but again, those who follow the Tour de France, we're recording this on the Sunday here, but he's off again. Man, it must be taking some damage there, but some Yahoo, we'll call it, threw tacks over the road, which that's not cool. And now it looks like the battle for Cadillacs is going to be Mark Payne and James Cullen in their unfortunately similar colored Cadillacs. When you get them side by side, it's a little easier to differentiate, but even still, kind of hard to tell some of it.
And it looks like someone had gone wide coming out of the carousel. There is a lot of, I guess, dust all along. You can see there as it kind of blows away. But so, yeah, I don't know if it's people just kind of losing concentration because we're getting this is about the coming up to the end of what a normal GTC race is, and if that's what people are, it must be John Kelly. He must be sticking around on the outside just to make sure he stays off the racing line. That's smart. So never mind, not another car off. I'm assuming that is John Kelly.
Yeah, and Carlos Passos, who had that earlier incident with Mike Kelly down in turn 5, is chasing Anthony Muniz down, which was, I believe, the positioning before the pit stops. And looks like Chuck Chambliss is about 3 seconds up the road from them. So that's a relatively close battle. And there's another little bit of driver commentary there too. One of those things, just remembering now, because I don't remember a lot of details from this race from my own personal experience, but that kind of sick in your stomach feeling as you realize you've kind of thrown away a potentially good result because the race having damage there. It comes back when you see something like this, and definitely won't be wasn't the first time, won't be the last time, but still basically sucks every time. So.
Now, it's interesting you mentioned that you locked up the rears, because I have to say, on the 4GT, it doesn't seem to matter where I put the brake balance. I'm always locking the fronts first.
Yeah, that's what I mean too. That's consistently every track we've been to, I've had huge problems with this Daytona Prototype locking the front tires on it. I'm not sure exactly what it is. Primarily I do drive, Formula cars, or the prototypes, like the HBD, which is basically runs like a Formula car, and you can really play with the brake balance there, and you can kind of, I don't know what it is, but you really have a better feel for the braking there. Well, for some reason in this car here, and it was the same way with the 4GT when I ran it briefly a few seasons ago, but I couldn't help but lock the front brakes no matter what I did, so I'm not exactly sure what I did to lock the rears. Must have been a bump wrong or something, but I was going to say it was just as surprising to me as it sounds like it was to you that I was able to do that. Taking a brief break from commenting and everything, I see as things have, after that flurry of spinning and crashing, would seem to have settled out a little bit here to so what I'm going to do here, just as we're almost reaching the halfway point, go through the top 5 in each class. Right now we have Colin McLean leading Russell Cow now by 4 seconds, so Colin's able to pull out a bit of a gap there. Daniel Gralty, a further 19 seconds behind Russell Cow, with Mike Kelly and Chuck Chambliss running at the top 5. In the 4GTs, we have Chris Damron Jr. with a sizable 38-second lead over Kenny Coughlin in second place, Patrick Spence a lap down from the leaders in third, Lance Snyder in fourth, and O'Crony in fifth. And then the Cadillacs, we have James Cullen, a healthy 3.7 second lead over Mark Payne, which, considering those guys' relative pace in the battling list so far, it's a pretty big lead. Lauren Bateman in third place right now. Jeremy Burris, a quiet fourth position right now, with Brian Huff in fifth place. And one thing I just want to mention too, because we haven't seen a lot of Jeremy in the series this year. Last year he was one of the main players in the LMP class, and thinking about it too, that if Jeremy didn't have bad luck, he wouldn't have had any luck at all. A couple very, very good results, but also a couple of unfortunate disconnections, and unfortunately some errors by himself. Carlos Passos wide of the kink, keeps it off the wall, so no damage there. Just lose a little bit of time. But Jeremy decided to start this year in the Cadillac, and having a very, very solid run in fourth place in a car that I know is not ideal to suit his driving style, because in the faster classes of cars he's always running up front.
And also, since we are about left with an hour in the race, take a moment to thank our sponsors, Z1 Simwheel. We mentioned them at the start of the program. They offer LCD display boxes that you can add to your sim. We featured the different dashboards that are displayed depending on whichever car you're driving. Also, they make two different types of steering wheels that are basically replacements for any Logitech wheels. They look really awesome. There are two styles. A Formula Type 1 that uses the SLI Pro, which is like the LED lights, basically what you would see in a Formula 1 car. And also they have a Prototype style one, and that incorporates the LCD display set in the wheel. But all of them have a lot of buttons and rotary switches like you would expect to see on a prototype / Formula car. Those are some great options if you're looking to have a more immersive or authentic driving experience while racing. So go ahead and check out those products at z1simwheel.com.
We're back with on board with Mark Payne. We don't get to go on board with Mark all that often, so of course it'll be brief. One of those things too, I wish I could hit a button here just to queue up, especially at this point of the race, to go on board with someone and kind of point out some excuse me, some of the features of the track. Alright, so hopefully my voice doesn't give out before the end of this thing here and I start sounding like a pimply teenager popping and squeaking a little bit, but get through here is we've got Anthony Muniz in 6th place, and as you can see, Chuck Chambliss just up the road there, less than 2 seconds ahead, so he's been able to close that gap slightly, and he's almost within that range where he can start taking advantage of the other driver's draft, as we're about 35 seconds away from reaching the halfway point of this race.
Also looks like this could potentially turn into a close three-way battle for 5th, 6th, and 7th, as Carlos Passos is about 1.5, a little bit more than that, off of Anthony Muniz. So that is potentially going to be a fun three-way battle for us to watch.
Yeah, but it looks like things have spread out enough that we've just got a long straightaway with the two Cadillac protagonists duking out. Mark Payne closing that gap down to about 2.3 seconds from the earlier 3.7, so not a huge change, but dealing with such small margins, pretty significant, as Mike Kelly is now caught behind Kenny Coughlin in the Ford GTs. You can see how it's slowed him up a little bit there going through the kink, as the Fords have to go a little bit slower than the Daytona Prototypes, but at the same time he's able to get a good run off there and pass Kenny quite easily going through there. So I mean, there's a few places here where you can get held up by the slower cars, but as I mentioned before, this is actually a very, very good track for the multi-class, because really there's not a lot of places you can get held up on. And the Daytona Prototypes there, Anthony Muniz going through into Canada Corner at what looked like 1,000,000 miles an hour. These Daytona Prototypes really do fly through there. Pushing 175 miles an hour as you head down towards Canada Corner. Now, this is one thing we had talked about in one of our servers there too. In the, I think it was a Pirelli Challenge. I can't remember the Pirelli Challenge, the sport race, but one of the Kia drivers, and I don't remember his name right now, if you guys can add that for me, had an unfortunately large accident down there at Canada Corner when he lost the brakes. From what I understand, he is doing much better, but I mean, he basically barrel rolled into that tire barriers at unabated speed. So for those of you who follow the series, I'm sure you've seen the highlights of it, but it was a pretty nasty crash, and it's kind of the highlights on what can happen in a race car when something does go wrong. Yeah, you guys remember who that was?
No, unfortunately, I had checked out at this point of the race. I had been, I had gotten a bit frustrated with Atlanta, but then I got, I went on vacation, got back, so that's the next race I missed for that, and then I got quite sick for a couple weeks, and after I was off pace and this sore throat that just wouldn't go away was plaguing me again, I decided it would be better to get some sleep and try to fight the cold. So I think around now I was out of the race. Just check Well, I'm only up down, but I think I was, yeah.
Brian, that driver that you were mentioning that had that very serious accident, and the corner we're actually coming up to right now was Mark Pombo. I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. If you just go ahead and search that on YouTube, Mark Pombo crash, Road America crash, you should be able to find it. It is just huge. Basically, what they determined happened was the brakes failed coming into Canada Corner, and so what Mark did basically was he had to cut on the right side to avoid hitting another car. So instead of taking the track, he cut through the grass, which is a straight line into the tire barrier there, and he had to be lifted out using a medical helicopter. And I know he's doing much better now, but still, that is a very serious crash, and a lot of people have been using this as kind of incentive to put a runoff, well, not a runoff, but an escape route or escape road there. Some people have been calling for that for a while now, and they're saying this is exactly the reason we need it.
Yeah, as you can see down, you can't really see it from this angle here as you're going through there, but I mean,
right there, that grass is where he cut through.
Yeah, but there is not a lot of, there are tires there, obviously, but there's not any runoff behind the corner there for that sort of thing. And for those that are IndyCar fans out there, too, last year's Grand Prix of Baltimore, Tony Kanaan had a similar incident going in one of the corners, and very luckily, and I guess luckily the way he used Helio Castroneves there to slow himself down, ended up going up and over the top of him when his brakes gave out on him going into one of the corners. Not nearly at, high speed, because it's an Indy car, but it's kind of like one of the things that, as a racing driver, going to give you chills as you're going through. You want that brake pedal to be able to slow you down, and if it just kind of clicks to the floor, it's definitely not a good feeling.
Yeah, I just reviewed that crash, actually, as you were describing it. That was a nasty one. And exactly the reason that I'm not allowed to go on tracks.
Do you do that in real life?
No. Just the fear that might happen. Even if everything else is going right, some stupid little thing like the brakes going out. In fact, that's not the only massive brake failure that's happened at Road America last year in the which was it? Patrick Dempsey's car got hit, but it was I believe a Mustang that did it. Lost his brakes coming down the end of the front straight and actually jumped the wall.
Yeah, I like the way you said that. It's a little thing like the brakes failing.
Well, I mean,
it's a pretty big thing.
It's a big thing, but it's just a little mechanical component that can fail in a number of different ways, and that'll do it for you at the end of a sprint.
Yeah, especially here at Road America, where the straights are so long and these cars do reach such a high top speed. I know that the car that he was racing isn't reaching the speeds that, say, a Daytona Prototype would, but it's still, very high speed to be going basically straight into a wall. At that point, boy, this is. Oh, I thought Jules Moret was going to make a very, very late move there, but yeah, I mean, unless you have just tons and tons of tires, it's going to be very, very hard to absorb all the energy of that impact.
Actually, going back to Le Mans this year, Anthony Davidson going down to I can't remember the name of the hairpin, the one corner there at the Indianapolis, I think it is. No, wait, not Indianapolis, the one before that. But anyways, the point is, I was caught by another car. Yeah, the end of the Mulsanne. The end of the Mulsanne there, but just something simple. Not simple, but just got clipped a little bit by another car up in the air and ended up going headlong into the tires at about 100 miles an hour. So. Definitely, well, not 100 miles an hour, but I've definitely been in that kind of situation before in the Rotax Max go-karts, going into a hairpin and having my tie rod come off just as I was entering the corner, which basically means the front of the car kind of skated along the ground like a sled. Didn't know what was going on until I kind of looked up the corner. You're supposed to look ahead in the track, and realized it just went by at about 50 miles an hour. I was like, oh, I'm not turning. Oh, Gilles Moret going up the inside of Stephen Clark here. That's for 8th position. Gilles has it now, so let's a little back in the Cadillac field. A couple are about a lap down from the leaders, but position nonetheless.
Yeah, good to be able to see that Gilles Moret is able to battle back. We saw that he had a couple spin-offs, made a bit of contact with Wallen, so it's good to see him be able to battle back.
Well, Anthony Muniz making a run on Chuck Chambliss here. That battle has finally closed up, so this is a battle for 5th position. We got Anthony Muniz, as you can see the gap visually there, about half a second behind. And just notice that Carlos Passos, there he is just below the bridge there, is about a second and a bit behind Muniz. So potential we get a good three-way battle for 5th place here. Other battle I'm noticing on the Daytona Prototypes is Mike Kelly is about 2 seconds behind Daniel Grolty for 3rd place.
Yeah, those two drivers have been kind of ebbing and flowing throughout this second stint of the race. They've kind of, I think the closest they've been is maybe 1.5 seconds, and it's kind of fluctuating in between there, and so that could also be turning into a battle for podium position in a short amount of time.
Both drivers are using all the runoff available to them going through Canada Corner here. There, I should say. We're not through Canada Corner anymore. Well, they spread it a little bit. Looks like the gap between the three of them is kind of equalized, about a second between each of them. 2 seconds covering the three. As we got Karl Mumbauer here, we don't get to see a lot of him in the number 38 car, and that's why. Oh, and I'm sorry, Carl. I was hoping it'd be for something good, but instead it was you breaking your car. So.
Yep, that's unfortunate. That's he's got a very nice livery on that car, and it's a shame we don't get to see it quite as often as I think we should.
Well, these guys seem to kind of stabilized a little bit here in their gaps. Ready to pounce potentially if there's traffic. But that's one of the other things too, is because of the way the traffic holds you up here. In order to take advantage of something being held up through another car, you have to be within probably about half a second of them, because you're about a second gap. All that's really going to do is allow them to get past their car first, and then you're going to have to make your way past. So really, there's going to be no advantage gain there, very little advantage gain. So kind of have to be a little bit closer than they are now if they were to come up on someone. But looks like actually Muniz is slowly working that gap back down again. But Carlos Passos is also coming back into the picture too. So it's the gap between the three of them is shrinking ever so slightly. We're going to come into the kink here, see how fast we go through here. We've seen guys run really wide coming off here before when battling, but Muniz is very expertly using just the right amount of curb going through there and the maximum amount of speed.
You can see that was the number 38 of Karl Mumbauer that we just saw had that crash coming out of turn 5. He has just entered the pits. Not sure if how much damage he has. I know he's going to try and do his best to get it fixed. Hopefully he'll be able to get back out and continue to turn some laps. He can potentially kind of make up or lose spots because Timothy Stoll has regained or gone back out. I think no, that was not him, that was Mike Kelly. But yeah, Timothy Stoll has gone back out, so he is turning laps. So there are places that he could potentially lose if he decides to or has to retire the car.
Yeah, we just saw a brief glimpse of the Mike Kelly running down Dan Grolty there. Set down to about 1 second gap as we cut back to Chuck Chambliss and Anthony Muniz on board with Muniz right now, heading down the straightaway down towards turn 5. Now these corners here, not really corners, just kind of kinks in the straightaway there, but you may wonder why turn 1 leads into turn 3 and then turn 3 leads into turn 5. Well, basically the corners are numbered by marshalling posts. So when they set up this track, they had, big correction there, but able to keep going for minutes. But they're numbered by where they have the marshalling post there. So some of them you'll have like, turn 1, turn 2 is not really a turn, it's just where there's a marshalling post, and then you have between turn 3, 4, and I think there's like a 4A along the straightaway there as well. And there it is, Mike Kelly, Daniel Grolty, nose to tail. This is a battle for the podium right now, as the leaders are about 7 seconds apart. Mike Kelly is trying to take that third place away from Dan Grolty. Carlos trying to use as much power as he could coming off the corner there, always coming to the back of the Can-Am Crackers racer. I'm not exactly sure who that was. It went by pretty quickly, but he is right in the back of Muniz, and Muniz has lost touch a little bit with Chambliss there, so hopefully we'll close that back up, because right now Passos is all over Muniz, and we'll see if he can get a run on him going down the straightaway here. Doesn't look like he got much better exit speed, so he might be able to pull the draft and get alongside, but no, it looks like Muniz has it as far as distance goes. So over to the battle for third place again, with Grolty up there heading the green and black car, with Kelly in the Sobe sponsored blue and bluish car. And Grolty under pressure locks the front brakes and goes wide, conceding third place to Mike Kelly. So, and by quite a distance too. So now he's got Tim McLeish in the Ford GT there between them. So unless Dan Grolty does something spectacular over the next couple laps, it looks like Mike will have that third place, 18 seconds behind second place man Russell Cow.
And that is unfortunate for Daniel Grolty. He wasn't under any real immediate pressure. He did have a fairly sizable gap between himself and Mike Kelly, and I guess he just kind of saw him charging up in his rearview mirror, and it kind of threw him off. That's unfortunate for Daniel Grolty. He's had a few issues throughout races in this season, and he was having a good run today. He's still having a good run. He's in P4 and just have a chance to catch back up and get back on the podium. I'm sure he would like to see that.
Yeah, it's one of those things too. You're unsighted by slower cars here too, and what I was mentioning before, I always had trouble with the front brakes here, and that's what happens is because sometimes you get on the brake just a little too hard. I don't know if it's aerodynamic, because that might play a part in it too, but once you snatch that front brake, it's so hard to get it unlocked, and it might even just be like, you hit the brake just a little bit too hard, and that's what happens. It looks like he went off by quite a distance, but it might have been a very, very, very small lockup, but a pronounced lockup, and that's what happens. It'll send you off the track. So it'll be all right 95% of the time, but every so often that'll happen. And it looks like Dan Grolty's got his gap stabilized behind Mike Kelly at about 2.5 seconds. So as it looks like Carlos Passos has got another run of draft going down the straightaway here. Mina's taking the inside, but Passos not close enough to make a pass. So looks like hope he'll stick to the inside. And wow, that was close. Muniz taking a little bit back to the outside there to take a line, but Passos got in there really deep on the brakes and almost got into the back of Muniz there, but they both got around all right and lived to fight another day. And Jerry Morsdorf up behind John Rizzutos there in the Can-Am Crackers 01 car. I'd like to point out John, as we had that unfortunate incident at Mosport where apparently he was having a fantastic battle, but we never got to see him because of a technical error. So there he is out in front. Off Jerry Morsdorf. John in a very respectable 6th position right now. He's a lap down of the leader and about 21 seconds behind 5th place Ryan Huff. However, in a very tightly contested Cadillac field, holding on to 6th place for the moment here. I had Jerry Morsdorf, but very good showing for him, and like I say, in the Can-Am Crackers cars, he peels off into the pits. So that should be his final pit stop. We got about 43 minutes left, so he should be able to make it to the end from there.
Yep, I believe just before we saw John Rizzutos pull in, another Cadillac had pulled in. I believe it was Ryan Huff, and so that will be his final stop also. He's being scored in 6th at the moment. So guys starting to make their final pit stops, and they'll run the fuel down to the end.
Well, it looks like this is one area where a bottleneck can form behind one of the Cadillacs here as we go through, and I forget what this turn complex is called, but I'll take a look in just a second here as we're watching the battle. Not exactly sure where to go as Chuck Chambliss here going on the outside. Look, he's run a little bit wide. He's going off the track here, so he's going to be able to slow a little bit, allow the other guys to come up, and wow. That is a huge accident. I think Anthony Muniz just went flying into it. Says he's in the pits. No, he was into the trees there. He went flying over the wall there. I'm not sure
Well, I think he actually got ejected off of the track. When you do that, as you know, in iRacing, you get stuck back in the pits.
Yes, but just going back there, I guess we could. I'll cover some of this here, knowing what we just saw from the spotters there. But it looks like there's a sigh from Anthony right there on the air radio. But it looks like Carlos, in an effort to try to make it 4 wide going down the straightaway, got into the back of Muniz as they're going up the straightaway there, and kind of pitched him into the side of Chuck. And unfortunately, both of them went out. So I don't know if Anthony, if you have any further thing to add on that incident.
Well, I mean, you basically covered everything. Really not a whole lot. It is kind of weird watching it back, and it's been a couple of weeks since we have done this, and I guess the least I can say is that it's unfortunate to see a 3-way battle like that end the way it did.
Yes, indeed. So, I mean, that does... Currently, it looks like Mike Kelly has been into the pits, so because Mike has dropped back to 5th, Dan Royalty back up to 3rd place, so I would miss that on the screens here, but Dan Royalty's going to try to pull out a gap on Mike, as he will probably be waiting a little bit to make his final pit stop. It looks like Mike Kelly took a different pit strategy, because he pitted very, very early. I mean, you need a certain... I can't remember the amount of gallons you needed for this race here. But basically what you do is you figure out the amount of gallons you need for the race. Say it's... I'm going to say 35 for this race. I'm just going to guess out there. In a 14-gallon tank. So 2 full tanks will take you to 28 gallons. So then you've got 7 gallons to play with. So do you take, some of those gallons and maybe do 10 gallons in your last stop and short fill your second stop by a number of gallons to get to that 35, or it looks like Mike actually ran relatively short at the beginning, and it's going to run relatively full at the end to maybe gain track position. So looks like a number of different strategies at play, but it's really kind of hard to go over them without a more resources at my disposal here. But the basic idea is, you can play around with the amount of fuel. You know how much you need to get to the end of the race, how you allocate that for your 2 pit stops that you have to make today. Mike's doing it one way. It looks like some of the other guys are doing it another way. We'll see how it turns out.
And we're going to take a look at Mark Payne. And this is really the closest this battle has been in the fight for first position in Cadillacs. Mark Payne has been, comfortably turning laps about 2 to 3 seconds around behind current leader James Cullen, and he's really brought the lead or the gap rather down to about 1.5 seconds. And I think right now both of these guys are they're getting ready to make their final pit stops, and then that'll be when they start making their final push to actually try and really fight for the lead. I think for this middle stint, both of these guys have been kind of on, I almost don't want to say cruise control, because they're still trying to push hard to make sure they don't lose sight of each other, especially Mark Payne. And rather, James Cullen would like to lose sight of Mark Payne. But really, I think we'll see this gap come down if Mark Payne has anything for James Cullen to battle for first. After pit stops, of course.
Absolutely. One thing I noticed in this battle here is these guys are really pushing hard now. We're starting to get down into the nitty-gritty of the race here. 38 minutes left, so this is where positions actually do matter. And watching the cars go around, I have driven the Cadillac a little bit at some of the tracks here, just a bit of a test. And it is a handful to drive, and watching it, I'm enjoying watching it go around the track at speed a lot more than I have driving it, because it is a handful. And actually, just looking at the GT leaderboard, the Ford GT, and it looks like Chris Damron Jr. has got about a lap lead on Patrick Spence right now, so, or he's 43 seconds anyways.
I believe that's 1 minute 43 seconds.
And that's quite a hefty lead.
Yeah, really, this is pretty much the only battle that is on track right now. Daytona Prototypes have pretty much been split up by about 10 seconds between each car, give or take. The gaps between, it's somewhat close between not Kenny Coughlin, Oh no, never mind. They separated by a lap. So, no, it's pretty much decided in the 4 GTs as long as no one makes a mistake and has race-ending damage.
The Daytona Prototype leaders are in the pits right now.
All right. So there was a bit of a gap between those two guys. So that'll be interesting to see where they come out, and then. Really, it's going to be a battle for first in the DPs, and then a battle for first. And this is Russell Kyle right now. Looks like he's heading down towards his pit box, and I think I saw Colin McLean's car. Nope, it's still in the pits. I thought I saw it move to leave, but I'm guessing he'll be exiting pit lane fairly shortly.
Yeah, Mark is really rotating that car right on the entrance of the corners and letting it, like trying to get it pointed as early as possible to get the power down to power out, which, not the smoothest way around the track, but oh, look at that. Let's see, that's what happens sometimes. I'm about to say, I mean, something like that can happen where you get a little bit too much and you can over-rotate the car and pitch the car off the track relatively easily. And it is a very fast way around the track, and the way Mark's looking at it right now, I mean, he's not driving for second place, he's driving for the win, and he's got James Cullen in his sights just about a second and a half up the road there. You can see him as they break for turn 5.
Okay, and after pit stops have cycled through for Colin McLean and Russell Cow in the Daytona Prototypes, you could just see the DP of Russell Cow right there in the tail end of that shot. There is about a 10.5 second gap between McLean and Cow, so McLean able to put quite a bit of distance between himself and Russell Cow after he got through, or past rather, Russell Cow as he made that mistake coming out of turn 8. So it could still that is a potential battle if Russell Cow he's going to really have to turn up the intensity in this last stint. He's only got 35 minutes to make up about 11 seconds on Colin McLean. Both of them, of course, made their pit stop. Daniel Gralty is currently being shown as the race leader. He has yet to make his final pit stop. But from the looks of things, it's going to come down. The best battle is going to come down to the Cadillacs again, as we saw at Road of Atlanta, as James Cullen comes into pit lane to make his final stop.
Let's give Mark Payne a chance to run some laps out ahead of him and see if he can make the gap up that way. He wasn't really close enough to make a pass on James, so I mean, it wasn't being held up by any means, so we'll see how this works out after the pit stop shakeout. There's Carlos Passos hustling Russell Cow, but Carlos has not made his second pit stop yet.
Actually kind of surprised to see minimal damage on the front of his car after the tap that he gave a few laps earlier. That car actually looks pretty clean.
Yeah, if I recall seeing the contact from the replay that we'd seen earlier, that the contact was relatively minimal, but in just the right area to get underneath your looks like your left rear quarter panel and spin you around. So wasn't a turf from behind into a braking area as both cars were accelerating, but unfortunately enough to cause that chain reaction crash.
All right, well, we are getting down to just about half an hour left to go. I know pit stops are cycling right now. I'll leave it alone for the Daytona Prototypes as they still are kind of cycling their way through. But for the 4 GTs, It's Chris Dameron Jr. still in the lead with a very, very large 1 minute 48 second lead over second place driver Patrick Spence. Lance Snyder is in third place. Great job by Snyder. That I think is one of his highest performances so far in the GTC season. He is currently running a lap down on the leaders, but he has a full lap advantage over Kenny Coughlin in fourth place. Tim McLeish is still on track, running in fifth place. And there's still a few pit stops have to be made in Cadillacs. Mark Payne currently being the leader with Lauren Bateman in second, 44 and a half seconds behind. That should be the gap between, after he makes his pit stop, that should be about the gap. Once they kind of cycle through, he'll be dropped down to third place. And the big story will be if James Cullen will be able to, or if Mark Payne rather will be able to pass James Cullen in the pits. It'll be a race out of the pits, hopefully, between Cullen and Payne.
Yeah, Russell is losing a lot of time to Colin right now, so it looks like Colin's got this one. Once Gralty makes his pit stop, should have it relatively in hand.
Yeah, he's definitely isn't looking as fast as he did in the earlier stages of this race. We kind of see him making a lot of, they're not really big mistakes, but they are small, kind of just overshooting the apex and touching wheels just off the track into the grass, that sort of thing. And he's really dropped quite a bit as Carlos Passos he makes his way into the pit stop. He should, as we saw, Russell Kyle will get by. Looks like, I believe, Mike Kelly will also get by, and that will put Carlos Passos in fifth place. Yep, as we go on board with Mike Kelly right now. And that'll put Passos on the tail end of what are the lead lap cars. Next place is Mike Taylor. He's currently a lap down in sixth place. And the gap between Colin McLean and Russell Kyle, they still have Daniel Gralty still has to make his pit stop, so they're not being shown first and second. But it's currently close to 20 seconds, about 19.5 right now. So after pit stops, Kyle's lost about another 9 seconds roughly on Colin McLean, so that is not what he needs to do to be able to catch up and challenge for that first place. Right now, it's looking like Colin McLean has this race locked up as long as he can run a clean rest of the 29 minutes and come out on top.
And we saw
Here
Mark Payne
is
in the pits. James Cullen headed by, and he will make the pass. Wait, I didn't see Mark Payne. There's Mark
there!
Payne.
Wow.
That was close.
So Mark looked like he gained like half a second, maybe. Not even, but that was, wow, those guys had, even when they got separated, they were still maintaining the gap. So that is really, really impressive. That's going to be a 29-minute battle left for the win in that class.
Yeah, and just judging by the gap between those two guys right now, it's about 0.4, 0.5 seconds, fluctuating a bit because of the draft as they head down towards turn 5, but that was so close. You can see that, and it looks like Lance Snyder going to hold up Colin McLean a little bit as he comes through to turn 1. I'm not entirely sure if he saw him right there or if he knew he was going to be that close as they headed into the first corner.
Well, Lance is about, he's just about 4 seconds behind Kenny Collingwood for the final podium position there, so he does have his own, he's trying to get out there as quickly as possible, so.
Very true.
However, I probably would have conceded a little bit more to the Daytona Prototype there had he known, but a lot of stuff going on when you're trying to come out of the pits too. And actually, one thing I should mention about that too, which is, oh my goodness, these guys are going crazy through the carousel. We'll come back to Lance exiting the pits in just a second here, but this could be for the lead here as Mark is right on his tail. I don't know if he was kind of playing possum before, but he is stuck right to the back of him and might be a little too close to get a decent run on him going to the corner here because the draft isn't going to help him that much, and you can see he's actually dropping a little bit back. Won't have him into Canada corner. James is too good in all aspects, like the braking, exit, and all that, to get him there. So he's going to have to try to find a little mistake from James or get a vastly better exit. We'll see coming through here through the final corner.
Yeah, and this is the closest I think we've seen Mark Payne to James Cullen so far in the race. They might have had a few small battles, but those were in the earlier portions of the race, but those were short-lived. And now Mark Payne, I think, is throwing everything that he has at James Cullen. There's only 27 minutes left in the race. That seems like a lot of time, but with a very, very strong driver like James Cullen, it could take that entire 27 minutes for Mark Payne to find that one mistake or that one slip-up that he needs to be able to get by.
Well, Mark's also going to be looking for it right now because he's on the golden lap for his tires. The reason that all of the Cadillacs in the top section are able to qualify amongst the 4 GTs is that they are so good right on the fresh tires. So Mark Payne, with those tires just out of the pits, is going to be looking for this opportunity here to see if he can do it under braking.
Oh, he forced,
not quite.
He forced Cullen off the exit or the apex there, so but unfortunately was able to get the run through. And another thing too is, I mean, it's going to be one of those things where in one of those situations, the corners are spread apart. It's not as easy to do, but what you do is you set the guy up, a few corners ahead of time, so maybe force him to come in a little bit more inside than he's used to into one corner, which makes him a little slower to that corner, and you can force him a bit in the next corner until you get to the point where you've got enough of an advantage you can duck behind the exit, where here at Road America, there's enough distance between the corners that, say he runs a little bit wide in the exit, he's able to rejoin his regular line well before the next corner, so you really can't get the advantage that way. So now that this will be the lap that James' tires will be at their peak, so we'll see if Mark can hold on for that and resume the battle afterwards. But I have a feeling it's going to be pretty tough now for Mark to make any sort of run on him.
Yeah, well, Mark Payne is now kind of on the downside of that golden tire lap, like Daniel pointed out, and he's dropped back to about 0.7 seconds off. That doesn't necessarily mean anything, like the tires are drastically falling off, just probably a little bit slower through one corner. But we really saw some very, very aggressive driving from Mark Payne. I think that was him, like Dan pointed out, trying to take advantage of those really, really good tires that you have on the Cadillac when you first start. And it'll be interesting to see when they're on more of an equal tire wear level, what happens to the gap if Mark Payne is able to stick right with James Cullen.
And actually, it's not a lot to do with the tire wear. It's how the tires heat up in the temperature-wise, because these tires will last quite a long way. But what happens is, because Mark was driving so aggressively, he's heating them up. He was heating them up a lot faster than might have been otherwise done. And to get them cooled down once they've reached that temperature is very, very difficult. So I think it's going to move point now, because I think everything is going to stabilize, and I think he's going to be maintaining this gap relatively here, barring any mistakes from either one of them. But sometimes you heat them up too soon, and it causes you to slide around more. And the more you slide around, the hotter the tires get. It's kind of lack of a better word, it's a slippery slope. I mean, it goes downhill from there. So you really got to kind of consciously back the car off a little slower into some of these corners, which I don't think Mark is just driving as, like he always does, is coming after James here. So sometimes you do have to back off, let the tires cool down a little bit. However, once they do stabilize, they're normally pretty good for the rest of the run, and once they get another lap or two on these tires, then I think everyone, by about the 20-minute mark, it'll be pretty stable, and it'll be just down to 2 guys in the cockpit. But anyways, the point I was making is we show Lance Snyder here again, making about how when Lance came out of the pits in front of Colin there, basically what you do is, when you can see on the screen here, you have delta times between where the other cars are on the track. And you use that a lot, in particular while you're lapping cars, but also when you're coming out of the pits. However, if there's more than a few cars in the pit lane, and there's someone coming up fast on the straightaway, you don't see the car coming down the straightaway, you see the cars behind you in the pit lane. Yeah. And you can't be staring at that as you're coming out of the pit lane. Eventually you have to look at the track, you have to look at the road. So if there's more than, like say 3 or 4 cars behind you, Colin McLean in that case, who was coming out quickly, you wouldn't see him as he's still technically behind the slower cars. He'll fly past them rather quickly, and you'll see him in your mirror as you're coming out, but probably not enough time for, in that case, Lance to be able to see him as you come out. So it's one of those particular problems that notice it mostly at Road America as well. John Kelly is back in the race and back off the track there at Canada Corner. But yeah, particularly in Road America, where that's a huge problem because you have a huge fast straightaway and a slow pit lane and a long pit lane too. So.
Yeah, that's a disadvantage that we have as sim racing drivers, because if this were an actual real life race, you would have one of your engineers or somebody that's working in the pits telling you you're going to have a prototype coming up to you as you come out of the pits, use caution. And really, like you pointed out, Brian, we have a hard time seeing. I mean, we have the delta time screen to kind of give us an idea, but it does have its own flaws, and sometimes you're really just kind of, using your mirrors as best you can and almost guessing, is there going to be a car? And if there is he going to be right on me, like we saw the somewhat close call between Snyder and McLean, or is he going to be far enough back where I can just take my normal line? And that's sometimes you're able to gauge that properly just by using mirrors, and sometimes you're not.
As you can see here, Chris Dameron Jr., the leader of the 4 GTs, is now coming up to lap the leaders of the Cadillacs, but it's going to be kind of tough for him because these guys are focused hard and hit their battles. Chris has such a huge lead, and the leader of the Daytona Prototypes coming up there too, so maybe Chris will use that to get past the Cadillacs. But because Chris has such a huge lead in the 4 GTs, he's not going to be all that aggressive in trying to get past the Cadillacs, but at the same time too, I mean, they deserve to have their own battle. So and he's obviously quicker than they are, so getting past them cleanly and efficiently is in everyone's best interest. So he's just kind of biding his time and waiting for that opportunity as Mike Kelly is lapping Lance Snyder here. And as we just pointed out, I didn't mention this before, but after the pit stops, Mike Kelly has about 4 seconds behind Dan Gralty. So even though he's ahead of him on the track after Gralty had that small mistake in turn 5, Gralty is back up in that 3rd place.
And also Gralty right on the back of Russell Cow now, only about a second behind. So that is going to be turning into a battle for 2nd place. Currently, Russell Cow has dropped about 30 seconds off leader Colin McLean. So really not having the pace in the ending stages of this race, and possibly
taking some damage somewhere.
Yeah, that's very possible, because the Daniel Gralty he was about a second, and he's gained about 2/10 so far, and that gap seems to be coming down.
Big mistake there from Cullen.
Yeah.
Is this a chance for Mark Payne to get by?
And there he goes. And will he be able to hold it? They go through turn 6. And it looks like Mark Payne's going to be able to hold the position for now. Look, Mark Payne had fallen back in terms of the gap between them a little bit. So it's possible that James Cullen might have a little bit of more pace than him, but there's traffic here. These guys are going to be trying to be lapping, and Mark Payne, another tough competitor, he's going to do all he can to defend and keep James Cullen behind him. He's still got 19 and a half minutes to he'll have to do that, though.
And James has been so smooth up to this point here too, so he's gonna, again, the red mist is coming up, and he's gonna try to take that place back as soon as possible. If Mark can hold him off for the next few corners here, it'll kind of mute that challenge and be back up to James to kind of outfox and kind of fewer mistakes sort of thing to get around the game, but doesn't look like he's able to do it in the Canada corner. We'll see how it comes up. There's not a lot of passing opportunities back until you get to turn 1, so we'll see how he comes off the final corner and see if he's able to close up on Mark. In all honesty, the best passing places you saw where Mark actually got by would be turn 5, because that's the heaviest braking after the longest straightaway. So we'll see. Well, although as I speak there, James seems to have got a good run off the last corner, and actually a very good run off the last corner. He should be able to pull alongside here going into turn 1. We'll see if he's able to do it.
And Mark Payne going to be taking the defensive inside line, making James Cullen go around the outside. Payne moves over a bit to take a better line going through, and it looks like he's going to hold it. James going to try and see if he can get on the inside. Ooh, and he's going to try and dive under braking. Didn't quite have it. Mark Payne will still have the first position as they head down the straight towards turn 5. And it looks like James Cullen kind of got the worst end of that because he took the bad line going through turn 3.
Fantastic driving by both these guys here. I mean, James had a really good look going into turn 3 there. Mark came down, shut the door on him, and James had the skill and the wherewithal to be able to pull out of that is now we got a battle for second place in the Daytona Prototypes with Dan Gralti on the outside going into turn 5. This is going to be an interesting one because we'll see how Russell takes his braking. If going around the outside of here is probably not recommended, but
it might have been a little touch between them.
Yeah, a little bit, but they're able to keep going all right. Yeah, no, Russell Cow's got damage in the front of that car. He must have had an instant with a back marker to be able to slow him up here. Yeah, interesting. One of those, Dan going on the outside there, trying to drive around the outside of a hairpin like that is dangerous at best. Sometimes what you might want to do there is force the guy on the inside to hopefully brake a little bit later and do an undercut coming off the corner. But Dan tried to make an aggressive pass around the outside, didn't quite come off. However, he's got a run on him, and it looks like this is going to be inevitable. I don't think Russell's going to have the speed to hold off Dan for the remaining 17 minutes here.
Yeah, he's managed to do it for a couple laps because we've seen the gap between them kind of keep shrinking, but so far he hasn't been able to make his way by. I think Daniel Gralti's close enough now where I think that he'll be able to drag by him either on turn coming out of the last corner down into turn 1 or attempt another move as they head to turn 5. I think we'll have to see though. I mean, the gap is kind of widening a little bit now. Maybe Gralti had a little bit of a bad exit, but here is the battle between Payne and Cullen. And Cullen not close enough, just kind of sticking his nose out and filling up Payne's mirrors just to let him know he's still there. And then here's the battle for P2 in the DP, and Gralti's looking, kind of sticks his nose out, didn't really have it yet. Although there's going to be traffic here. Let's see if that's going to... No, I think they'll get by him before they hit turn 3, so that won't really affect them.
Well,
although Gralti is so close.
Yeah, Dan went for the inside of turn 3 there, even though the pass wasn't quite on. So, I mean, he's lost a little bit going here. What I would have tried to done is try to really slingshot that exit. I know he's got a pretty good run on him here, and it looks like he might take the place still, but Russell does go defensive.
Well, turn 3 there, he had the Can-Am car too. So that was why he was on the inside. Oh,
and he comes right on in front of Mike Kelly. Mike Kelly still got the momentum, and they're side by side. Kelly really trying to get around on the outside. That is tough to do, and he's still side by side as they head down towards turn 6. And Russell goes wide again. That's going to allow the speed of Kelly to go. Oh well, not as much as I thought. And Kelly's going to try and battle back. He goes wide again. Let's see if Mike Kelly can finish it as they head into the carousel. And yeah, he finally gets by. Russell Cowell really trying to defend that position and hold those guys back, but he just basically was holding them on because he was diving into the corners as late as possible.
Yeah, I think when he came back on the track there, fighting so hard with Gralti that entire time, I'm not even sure if he had any idea where Mike Kelly was going to be part of that battle there. So luckily they didn't come together when he came back on the track. Back on board with James Cullen now as he's now this is the battle here as it looks like the speed of Gralti and Kelly and Cow and those relative gaps should probably spread itself out a little bit. I don't know if Kelly's still got the legs to run down Gralti, but we can see. However, we'll see if James Cullen has the legs to run down Mark Payne. He seems to be getting really good runs coming up the last corner here, and Mark takes defensive to the inside. See if Cullen can pinch him to the inside and either go around the outside or do the undercut coming through, as we have got Gralti coming up here to battle. So that's going to play a big part. Ooh. Was there the contact? I don't know if there's contact.
Very light, I think.
Was the contact? Or just get loose under braking? Couldn't tell.
Yeah, very
Gralti
tough,
comes up the inside.
Tough to tell there if there was contact or not, but both of those guys going side by side through turn 1. Gralti able to get by turn 3. Still very close, and another DP coming back, and that is a fight forward position. Luckily, he gets by on the straight, so he won't interrupt their battle.
So this might be the chance that Cullen's looking for with the confusion with the Daytona Prototypes. He's gone up the inside, and don't turn down Mark, and he doesn't, and still going kind of side by side. He got the better run going around the outside there, so...
Yeah, Mark Payne really pushing hard now. You could see he did kind of pinch James Cullen in on turn 5 a little bit, kind of not allowing him to get the slingshot out of the corner. And Mark Payne having to drive very defensively right now. Let's see if, as they go through kind of more, they head towards the carousel, and this is Russell Cow. Yeah, there's Russell Cow coming up right behind him too, so this will be interesting because we know he's a bit off pace of the normal the rest of the DPs. I wonder if this will play a part because he is going to have a bit of a harder time getting past these guys.
They'll probably just slingshot around them going through the kink here. It'll be the easiest thing, unless Cullen decides to make a move, which case 3 into 1 doesn't really go. But yeah, no, Russell is going to clear them, and maybe James will follow him through. This is a really exciting battle. The guys, a lot of times you think about the Daytona Prototypes using the slower cars as picks to make passes, but a lot of times too, when you have the faster cars coming through, you can use them to help make passes in your own class. That's what James has been trying to do here, but now he's going to go through where he's been consistently better than Mark through this corner here as gets a decent run. Looks like they exited about the same speed, but he's going to have the draft coming up the hill.
And this is about when we saw Mark Payne taking the defensive line. Doesn't look like James Cullen quite has the speed on him to force him to do that, and that is really where James Cullen has been able to challenge Mark Payne, and he's gonna both take their normal lines ahead through turn 1 and turn 3. So it'll be interesting to see if Cullen has the speed as they head down towards turn 5. Looks like he's dropping back a little bit. Didn't quite have the same turn in speed or exit speed in turn 3. So again, no challenge at least this part of this lap.
Yeah, Cullen's big strength is coming off that final corner there, and really what was happening the couple laps before was forcing Mark offline through turns 1 and then by extension through turn 3, thus setting up his draft down the straightaway to turn 5 here. He was not close enough this time because he was not able to pressure Mark in turns 1, and therefore Mark was able to take his regular line through turn 1, through turn 3, and it's got a lot of momentum with these Cadillac cars here as looks like we're going to have to wait. And I don't think it's going to happen in Canada corner, again, barring any mistakes, but it'll probably happen again down the main straightaway, setting it up for another potential pass into turn 5.
Yeah, both of these guys seem pretty even once they get into the middle to end sectors of this circuit. And then, like you pointed out, Brian, Cullen seems to be able to get a very, very strong run coming out of turn 14 onto the front straight, and then that has opened up opportunities for him to get by in turns 1 and 3. But Mark Payne doing a great job of getting out just as well as Cullen did on the last corner, and that'll be at least one lap where he's able to take his normal line throughout the whole entire circuit.
All right, so we got actually, I don't know if they're actually catching or not. It looks like they're actually catching Don Norris in the Daytona Prototype here, so we'll see if that comes into play or not, as James gets a huge run on Mark through here. We'll see if he's able to take his normal better... yeah, he just seems to rotate the car better on the entry to that final corner there to get a good run off on here. So he's got a pretty good, decent run. I don't know if he's close enough to get on the inside, but...
yeah, I don't know. It looked like he came out of the corner. He went into the corner much better. He's going to stick his nose out, obviously not going to have be alongside to make the pass. But... I don't know if he's getting out of the corner as well as he was previously. I mean, he got into the corner awesome, but then both drivers seem to get out of the last corner about the same.
But even that said, it looks like he's got turn 3 hooked up this time, so he's got the draft, and depending on which side that Mark Payne decides to choose to go to, it's James will probably try to outbrake him on the other side.
Also, you pointed out, looks like they're also catching the Daytona Prototype of Don Norris. Looks like he had taken some damage. That could... Oh, and Mark Payne overshoots turn 5 by a very, very large margin. That is how James Cullen was able to get by, or Mark Payne was able to get by. James Cullen made that same mistake, but not as big as Mark Payne, and Mark Payne falling back close to 3 seconds. That is probably deciding the first place in Cadillacs right there.
Yeah, that was all pressure right there. I mean, that was... You're going to that corner, and essentially you got to pick as a leading car, you have to pick your braking spot perfectly. You have to make sure the guy's not diving up your inside. You can't turn into him, and what happens there? You miss your braking point by a little bit. You lock the front tires, and that's it. Position lost, and Mark will be kicking himself there. He had the position, he had the advantage, but James Cullen back in the lead.
Yeah, you pointed out that's just the pressure, I think. Oh, and this is Carlos Passos getting very sideways. I believe that is turn 8, just before the carousel. You pointed out pressure playing a part, and I think that was really what happened. Well, this is a great dynamic shot from the helicopter cam to focus on Mark Payne. Oh, and he's very wide again. Is that Canada corner? I'm not sure what corner that is, but he spins it around, so that definitely finishes out the position there for James Cullen. He'll easily take first place after that mistake.
Yeah, Lauren Bateman is still a minute 6 behind Mark Payne. So, I mean, second place still, and Mark probably just very disappointed that he lost that position, trying to get it all back in a couple corners, and that's what happens.
Yeah, just going back to my original point as we're looking at Mike Kelly and Daniel Gralti, this is for second place in Daytona Prototypes. This is quickly becoming a battle, pretty much the only battle, or close battle at least, left on circuit. But Cullen was doing a great job of putting pressure on Mark Payne, not necessarily challenging for position, although we saw him get some great opportunities in turns of 1 and 3, and also a few in turn 5. Mark able to defend most of those, and then I think it was just that pressure that Cullen was applying that it forced him to make that one mistake, and that was all Cullen was looking for.
Now, just keep in mind here too that Mike Kelly has been running on these tires for far longer. They should have about the same amount of fuel, but Dan Gralti has the fresher tires in the circumstance. However, Mike Kelly doing a fantastic job in running them down right now. I mean, there's 6 minutes 40 seconds left, so that's just over 3 laps left of driving. And it's Carl Mumbauer. Again, we're just seeing him when he's off track. Really apologize to this Carl, because I mean was running a very solid 7th place.
Yep.
But
and it's the same corner too, unfortunately.
Or fortunately that he's keeping his mistakes confined to a certain area of the track as opposed to spreading them out.
Yeah, I guess that's the
glass half full sort of thing.
Yep, optimistic way of looking at it. Oh, and John Kelly having an issue as well. That is just coming under the bridge in turn 6. No damage, just kind of half spins it and he'll get it going again. But the battle between Daniel Gralti and Mike Kelly, it's about 1.4 seconds between the two cars, and it's come down, but I think Gralti has managed to kind of stabilize the gap so far. 5 minutes and around 30 seconds left to go, so not a lot of time left if Mike's really going to have to push to try and make up that lost time. Oh, and he goes a little bit wide in turn 5, just really trying to push the car to catch back up to Gralti.
The point I made about how I said how brutal it is to do a 2-hour race when your car is damaged. I mean, that's the exact situation that John Kelly found himself in, and I'm sure at this point in the race he's just wanting to poke his eye out with a fork, because it's so brutal when he's 8 laps down right now. He's sticking it out. He's finished the race, and all the power to him, because I know how bad it is to be able to drive a car the entire race damaged like that. So he's fighting it. I mean, these guys are battling for second place, but special shout out to John Kelly. I mean, he gets the battler of the day for sticking around for that. We lost sight of Dan just up ahead a little bit based on this camera shot, but he is there just out of camera view. We'll probably see him as he break down for Canada. There he is. Kind of the gap sort of stabilized there. So I don't think, unless we see some traffic or I guess like a mistake from Dan Gralti like we'd seen when Mike took the place from him originally. Definitely possible, but it looks like he's not doing quite enough to get that gap down in equal footing here, but we're on board with him right now. Good thing. Looks like we'll be with this battle for quite some time here, so as we go through turn 1 here, we're going to head down to turn 3. Hopefully we'll stay on board with these guys for a little bit. Breaking down a couple gears. Try to hold perfectly on the curb there, using the exit curb as well. We'll use those curbs there to rotate the car around. Long run down the back straightaway, so hopefully we'll go back on board with them, and if we do, I'll start pointing out some of the corners here, but instead we'll just enjoy the battle as we see it.
Yeah, like you pointed out, Brian, Gralti has done a pretty good job of stabilizing the gap between himself and Mike Kelly. It's still hovering around 1.4, 1.5, sometimes 1.3 seconds. And you pointed out earlier that Kelly is on older tires than Gralti. They do have the same amount of fuel, because it all kind of works out. Fuel works out in the end, but with only 3 minutes left in the race, that's going to only translate into a couple laps, depending on where the race leader, Colin McLean, is, who currently has a 31-second lead over Gralti. I don't really
Speaking
think...
of traffic, look up ahead.
Yeah, so we pointed... Oh, it looks like Giralty's going to be able to get by, before he hits Canada Corner, and that's really not going to benefit Kelly in any way. He'll get held up a little bit here behind the 01 is John Rasuto's as they head into, what is that, 13 and 13A. So really the gap's pretty much the same, and I think we're going to have to see a mistake from Daniel Giralty and not Mike Kelly if you want to catch him and try and make a quick pass for the second place in class.
All right, so I think next time that Colin McLean comes across the line, we're going to see the white flag. So we're just getting around the 2-minute mark here, and laps around the 150 some odd second range. I think actually, how long were the laps here? I forget the pole lap here. I think it was 153. Was it for the Daytona Prototype?
It's been 2 hours. I don't remember. I should. I don't.
Good point. Very good point. Long time.
Which gives me even more respect for the guys that commentate the 24-hour races. I know that they do it in shifts, but they still do long shifts. So
yeah, they have a lot of tools at their disposal too. It's not
true.
Just
yeah, they have a whole team working behind them. For us, we are the team. And still not seeing any... go ahead. Sorry, go ahead, Dan.
No, I was just going to continue that thought that there's so much of reality that you can talk about during a long race that we don't have any tuning sessions. Or, if someone wrecks in practice, you don't have to talk about how that they had to spend all night repairing the car, that kind of stuff.
Yep, very true. And it looks like Colin McLean has crossed the line, and that will bring out the white flag. So these guys are going to have one more lap. Mike Kelly is just hoping for a mistake from Dan Giralty as they head around one more time. The gap currently around 1.7 seconds or so. It's still about the same. I think both of those guys kind of made equal mistakes as they dip tires off or whatever in certain corners. Really, I don't see, right now, I don't see Mike Kelly getting by. I think Giralty will, I don't think he'll try and push too hard going into this final lap. I see the race finishing as they are right now.
And I think the point Dan was making earlier about the things that the guys have to talk about is that we do pretty awesome for what we do, so... After 2 hours, I'm going to pat myself and the rest of us on the back for a job well done. Yeah, it looks like Mike has kind of backed off a little bit here. I wonder if Mike's struggling with fuel issues too, as it looks like he's slowing up a little bit here because he pitted so early for that final stop. I don't know how marginally he might be on fuel. I think maybe he's just realized that unless something drastic happens to Dan at this point, that third place is the best he's going to be able to do. And in all honesty, third place is not too shabby when it comes to the series.
Yeah, especially in the Daytona Prototype class. That has some very, very serious contenders and a lot of fast drivers. And to get a podium in there is very, very good. Really, we've seen a few guys kind of dominate, but some of them having troubles finishing the race in strong positions. So it's really opened up the points for pretty much everyone. It's been a really, really close season in the Daytona Prototypes so far, and really most of the classes, I know, except for the Ford GTs. Oh, and that'll finish the race with Colin McLean taking the win. Really not unexpected there. He had a very, very sizable gap between himself and Daniel Giralty.
There's Kenny Coughlin coming across in third place. Tim McLeish coming across in fifth place. Lance Snyder in fourth place. A lot of those guys kind of mixed up a little bit. Giralty coming across in second place with Mike Kelly right behind him. So lots of top three there in the Daytona Prototypes. And as you can see in the little ticker there on the, even though some of the guys have locked their positions in, we got James Cullen here coming around for the the winner there. We won't see any until the leaders cross the line. So until Chris Dameron Jr. crosses the line, until James Cullen crosses the line, we won't get to see any of the other places of the other cars in those classes. So we do have the top 3 in Daytona Prototype. And now we've got Russell Cow and Carlos Passos coming home 4th and 5th. And that looks like Tim Stahl ending, again, what is another battle. He comes up, he's the runner-up for the battler of the race, finishing with him there. A ton of repairs there, but still a nod to John Kelly. And Chris Dameron Jr. takes another victory, so he's going to extend his already sizable points as Marty Jeffries, 2nd place in the championship, 8th place in this race. Unfortunately, race for Marty, and Chris Dameron Jr. is going to blow that one wide. Very, very big race there. Patrick Spence, 1 lap down in 2nd place as Dameron Jr. lapped the field in the 4 GTs. Unreal finish. There we go, race winner, James Cullen. So we have all our placings done so far. Excellent win for James. That was a hard-fought race.
All right, into the points. Is going to come home with 135 points, and let's see, Chuck Chambliss, John Kuzlin, that's still close, but look at Brian Carey, just 1 point behind. Daniel Giralti elevating himself to 2 points behind, so hey, something good is in reach for him. In 4GT, Chris Dameron Jr., as we said, continues his almost perfect perfection as it is, and it's looking like there's more separation. The only real interesting stuff here looking between Patrick Spence and Tim McLeish. Tim McLeish, good job there. Not necessarily getting strong points always, but doing well there to be in the 5th. And James Cullen in 1st, and running down Ricardo Machuca, Mark Payne, Warren Bateman, Ryan Huff. Pretty big spread in points in between there, so there may be some movement, but I don't see a whole lot of opportunity. Wow.
Yeah, that was a crazy race, guys. I mean, that was a lot happening there. We had a ton of action early. I'll just run down the schedule here. We just finished Road America there. We have, we'll be next week in Trinwing Motegi, probably one of the most decisive tracks, or not decisive, divisive tracks. You either love it or hate it. Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, and then wrapping up the season at Suzuka, July 16th, which for us will be run tomorrow. So check out Dan's Twitch TV, his live shot. He'll let him explain.
Yeah, twitch.tv/simracingdan. You can watch me race live from the cockpit, and then I upload those guys to YouTube. So if you subscribe to me here on YouTube, you'll get a notification when I post those.
All right, so any final thoughts, gentlemen, on what was a long and pretty entertaining race?
Yeah, well, we had great battles in all the classes for quite a while there, especially in Daytona Prototypes and the 4 GTs. We saw a epic battle between James Cullen and Mark Payne there at the end for the win of their class. Ricardo Machuca also had a very, very strong showing there. Unfortunately, not able to finish the battle out with them having the issues earlier. In the Daytona Prototypes, we saw battles pretty much throughout the entire field. Guys had kind of paired up, or in some cases in groups of 3, and there was a lot of good action in this race. Really, not a whole lot. I mean, some of our endurance races can get a little dull sometimes, but I think this one, we had action throughout the entire race, which was awesome.
Yeah, I think you said it. Pretty much the comments I was going to make. Really good action and trading of places throughout the whole thing, so really exciting and fun to watch. Alright, well, we'd like to thank you on behalf of Z1 Simwheel, our sponsor, and ISRA League, and the racers and admins who make it all possible. I'm Daniel Quaroni with Brian Carey and Anthony Muniz, wishing you a good night.